This is Lee Earl again. This time we have the very good fortune of having sitting in the chair opposite yours truly, a fellow who has made more impact on good mentalism than any other three mentalists I know. And I'd like for you to meet him. He's a mentor, he's a mensch, and he's Danny Archer. Good morning, Danny.
Hi, Errol. Nice to see you.
Or maybe good afternoon.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
No.
Okay. Danny is the producer of Mindvention. You've been going how long, Danny?
Well, yesterday we just finished our 14th. Yesterday.
Wow. And in all of that, I've been to, I think, 3, maybe 4, 5 tops. I honestly don't remember. And I have found each one of them to have the lowest bullshit to reality quotient of any convention of mystery performers ever. How do you manage that?
Well, I don't think I really do that much. I think it just sort of, takes care of itself. The convention world is a certain universe of itself, especially, there's mainly the magic conventions, and there are very few mentalism conventions. And I think the people that come just really appreciate it. And, so we're a niche within a niche, basically, is the way I look at it. And the people that come to the convention really, really appreciate it because they were a market that weren't being served. I mean,
yes.
Normally at a magic convention, there'd be 1 or 2 guys that might be talking about, oh, that was Shabilit or something like that. But they were never served. There was no lectures for them. There were no entertainment or shows for them. So that's one of the things that hopefully Mindvention has changed a little bit.
It has changed a lot. I'll be honest with you, Danny. The year before you first opened, I was thinking about doing the very same thing. And when I heard you were doing it, especially in Las Vegas, I said, good idea. See you later. Danny's got it.
Yeah.
So how did you come to discover your interest in mentalism?
Just through magic, like everyone else. You do magic, and then you start to see mental effects. You see someone that does something that's a mental nature, and then you see someone that's really good at doing mentalism, and you realize, that's interesting. And while I do run Mindvention, I would never consider myself, at least at this point, to be a full-time mentalist. I do a lot of magic in my professional work, but I include mentalism in every performance, whether I'm on stage, strolling, whatever. I do, because the reaction that mentalism gets is far greater than the reaction that a lot of magic gets.
Well, then why keep doing the magic?
A lot of guys were able to make that jump and make that leap. I haven't. I have a performing character that I perform as. Some people know it, some people don't. And I have finally theorized the idea of having a whole mental show, a mentalism show, as the character. With the setup. The character is Gino. Sometimes Gino Mozzarella, sometimes first name, sometimes no last name. And the character is an Italian tough guy from South Philly. So
not all that different from Danny Archer.
Jewish kid from the Northeast, a little different.
Okay.
A little different, but the Gino character, I have some mentalism that I do in the show now as Gino, and it plays well. So I'm thinking, why not a whole Gino show? And the rationale would be that Gino got whacked on the back of the head with a nightstick making an illegal withdrawal from a jewelry store one night. And ever since then, sometimes he knows things.
Fair enough. One of the tenets that I've long advanced, and you're stepping right on it, but this just goes to show what a wonderful industry we have, that people can vary and still be good performers and still remain friends. And that is, I have always felt that mentalism must be believed to be seen.
Well, And again, there's degrees of mentalism. The mentalism I'm doing is closer to mental magic than pure mentalism. I'm not.
Then it makes sense.
Then it makes sense, right, for the character to do that. And I've been fortunate due to Mindvention producing the Mind Summit in Germany, that convention, to see the Europeans, to see. I've seen a lot of mentalism in my time, and when you watch the good ones, the great performers, it is literally unbelievable. It is literally unbelievable. And it makes that impact even on someone like myself that's been around and knows what's going on. When you watch someone that a master at the craft, it's like nothing else.
Well, I do recall, I believe I published in the newsletter Syzygy one or two of your contributions.
Mm-hmm.
Par for the Course?
Par for the Course, the golf course trick.
That was a hit for a year. That made Syzygy's best.
It did.
And it did primarily because it was fun. Tell me why it was fun. I don't need to talk for this. This is your interview.
Well, the effect is add a number. And, like a lot of people, you want to have your effects be meaningful. And I thought to myself, well, why are we giving out, I'm going to add these numbers up, and why are we doing this? So the only sole purpose is so it matches my prediction that's taped to the wall or mailed in advance. Mm-hmm. There was no rationale to it. And then I thought to myself, what about if a golf cart is a natural thing where numbers are put down and they are total. That is the purpose of the golf cart.
And they're single-digit numbers, and if we've got a good stroke.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it just instantly led itself to the presentation, and I said, and the beginning intro to the trick was, why golf is not more popular? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, you got to wear those funny pants. Mm-hmm. Two, costs too much, takes too long to play. We're going to play around a mental golf that we're going to play in just a couple of minutes. So in that brief little sentence, you set up the whole thing we're going to play, and then the rest of the trick sort of unfolded. And one of my happiest moments in magic was Michael Weber lectured in Denver at one time. We went out for a bite after the lecture, and as we were talking, Michael said that he has performed Par for the Course.
Wonderful.
And I thought to myself, Michael Weber did one of my effects. That felt really good.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
And so Carson used to have a bit of philosophy he shared. If the audience will buy the premise, they'll buy the bit. Mm-hmm. So I see what you did in that particular piece was you set up a very believable, common sense sort of premise, mm-hmm. which then allows us, and I performed it for a year on the Syzygy's Best tour, mm-hmm. and so it allows the performer to just find whatever outrageous golf humor he chooses to use, mm-hmm. up or down the scale of language. Mm-hmm. And have a great fun. So the heck of a good idea, and people ought to buy an old copy of Syzygy and look it up. Now, tell us about your creative process.
For me, it goes in spurts. There's sometimes when I'm really super creative, and then there's other times when I'm not. But if I turn my mind to it, I can do it. When I do my lecture, one of the things I always ask my audience, raise your hand if you've read a book about creativity. Mm-hmm. A couple of people usually have. Some cities, 50%, but some cities only one or no one has. But there are books written on those topics, and I've read one or two in my life. And there were different techniques that were used, and one of the books said, whatever, normally magic tricks are problems. How do I get this signed bill into that orange or whatever it is? Mm-hmm. This is a problem. So one of the books on creativity says, put the problem in a place where you see it every day. So in one of my effects, which has it can be done as magic or mentalism, I wrote on a whiteboard in my office, come up with a coin routine that you could perform on stage for 500 people. That was the problem.
Oh, that's not hard.
That was the problem that I posed myself. And day after day, I would come into the office and I'd see the board consciously. Sometimes you look at it, sometimes, but you're aware of it. And I had nothing. And then again, I went back to the book on creativity, and the book said, if you're stuck, we have a problem sometimes. They said you can help yourself by getting unstuck. Is if you have a problem, they said take something familiar and add it to where you're having a problem. That can sometimes help. So I thought, okay, so you know, coin routine, what is something familiar? And I thought the most familiar line in magic or mentalism is pick a card, any card. I said, coin, pick a coin, any coin. The pick a card plot done with coins. So that's the routine, developed. The routine is called pick a coin. And I present it several different ways. You can present it as touch. They've touched a coin. You're going to find the coin by touch. But the basic effect is from a large amount of change, a coin is selected, thrown into a bag. The performer finds the coin.
Okay, cool.
Is what the effect is.
You mentioned your the platform persona. The Harry Bada Boom, what was it?
Gino.
Gino, okay. Why did you choose the Gino character, aside from the fact that it's something you're close enough to be authentic doing? Is there any other reason?
Yeah, and this again, to me, is a story that, to me, it's an interesting story. I'm working the Magic Castle 10 years ago, probably. And that was back in the day when they had the little room, and you would go to the kitchen, and the chef would hand you your plate, and you'd go to the little room to eat. Unlike today, where you can do it a little differently. And one of the other performers working that week was John Carney. Now, you've seen Carney do Mr. Misto, his comedy, crazy character. Have you ever seen him do Dr. X, the German mentalist?
No, but I'm already slathering to see it.
And I don't know if he was experimenting with it. I only saw it that one time when I was at the castle, but he had a fez on and an accent, and it was a German mentalist. So I get my plate of food the one day. I go into the room. It's Carney and I. We sit down. We have dinner. We're talking, and I ask him, John, I saw, you know, Mr. Misto. What's up with the Dr. X character? And then John proceeds to explain to me what he feels is the benefits of having performing character. One of them was you can do material as the character that you would not do.
Agreed.
Two, and this was one of the things that caught my ear, was you now have a second product to sell. You can go back to an existing client and said, would you like the magic of John Carney, the comedy magic of Mr. Misto, or the mentalism of Dr. X? So now you have multiple, basically a whole new show because it's a whole new character. And I thought, wow, that was really interesting. So this is exactly what happened. I'll shorten it down. I'm staying with Gregory Wilson, good buddy of mine. He lives 45 minutes from the castle if there's no traffic. So that night after the thing with Carney, the whole way through, I'm thinking about, you know, this thing with the character. So I get back, Greg is awake, how'd your set go? And I said, oh, the set went okay, but forget about that. Let me tell you, and I relayed the conversation with Carney to Wilson. And literally, it happened this fast. Greg says, oh, so you want to come up with a character? He says, well, the best characters come from within. Like Jack Benny might have been a little cheap, and he exaggerated it. You know,
of course.
So he said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Philadelphia, is where I was born. I was living now in Colorado at this time.
Yes.
And Greg says, well, Philadelphia has a reputation for a tough town. Maybe you could be a tough guy from Philly. And he said, could you talk? And I said, I'd talk a little more like this, like one of these kind of guys. And he says, that's it. So I thought, maybe. So the next night, I go to the castle. I have the same set that I'm doing as Danny Archer. I don't have, now I have music, I have props, costumes, everything customized for the character. But then I had nothing. But the funny thing was, I rewrote my intro. And the intro I rewrote for that first night at the castle is the intro I still use today. I didn't have the name for the character either. And literally, all I was going to do was talk different and move a little different. And as the MC is reading the new intro, which I wrote out, and he's reading it for me, there was a toothpick backstage, and I put that in my mouth. I went through the curtain, and I just gave the audience like a tough look. I didn't say a word. They started laughing. It was my best show of the week. After the first show, there was a knock on the door, and it was Eric Buss, who was in the audience. He said, "Danny, I never saw you do that character before." He said, "That was really good. How long you been doing that?" I said, "That was about 20 minutes." He says, "Oh my God, I would definitely try that again." So that was the birth of Gino.
It was a natural. All right. A lot of people who attend conventions have no idea the amount of angst in the background. Walk us through the planning of, I mean, you keep the stuff to yourself, but walk us generally through the planning. You just wrapped up today. Now you're thinking about next year.
Not today, but I will start on Monday.
All right.
I've had one or two people have contacted me already, as people are wont to do, to talk about. But it's sort of like the people that do, you know, if you ever saw like the Rose Bowl paraders said, "Oh, after the parade, you know, the next day we start working on the next parade." You start thinking about it. Now that it's been 14 years and probably 11 at this one hotel, it's gotten, some things have gotten a little bit easier.
You have a groove.
Yeah, so at one point, you know, you will reach, you know, a groove. It's not, like I said, it's not a Magic Live convention. There's not 1,800 people. We have a sweet spot of usually somewhere between 100 and 125. It's usually somewhere in that range. One year, a couple of years ago, we had 150 people, or maybe 155, and it was an anomaly. I don't know what happened, but we're usually...
That was the year I lectured.
Oh, that's... You're right, now that I recall. So there's, you know, the one thing is the load out and the load in. When we first started, now my partner Robert Allen passed away, unfortunately, last year, right before my invention. Literally, I think it was 9 days before the start of the convention last year, he passed away. But Robert and I, we used to have a trailer that we would attach to his SUV, and that trailer would be full to the brim, as would the car, and that's we would drive here and bring things out and build stands, and we had TVs, and they were heavy back then, you know, and we would lift up, and now our loadout is down to one little, you know, case because of some things. Digital technology has made things easier, and so some things have gotten a little bit easier.
Okay.
But
So how goes the planning? You say to yourself, let's say this is your second one or your first one, or you're early on and you don't have the groove yet. So you say, okay, I got to do my invention next year. First thought, what is it?
talent. To me, it all begins with that's the straw that stirs the drink. You want to bring in talent that is worthy, but there's also when you're booking the talent. And again, I used to run, quick aside, the Magicians Lecture Network, which booked lectures.
I benefited from that.
And I booked Lee, and Johnny Thompson came up to me last night. Oh, I made a lot of money with Danny when he sent me on his tour. And so even back then, I had to be looking at who's the guy that says he wants to lecture. Is he worthy? Is he qualified? Are the magic clubs that I send this guy out for going to be happy at the end of the experience? If they are, I'll be able to repeat it and do it again and send other people out. If they're not, that's going to be a problem. But then there's always the case, young, untested talent.
Yes.
How do they get a break? So unfortunately, sometimes it relies on the shoulders of the booker or the organizer as the person that's going to make that call. And I'll give you a good, for instance, with the lectures. One of the early guys that I started booking was John Allen. And John is from England. If you've ever seen him, fabulous lecturer. But John was he had won a big competition, I think, in IBM, but still not well known at all. And his tour went on and did great. And it's the same thing with my invention. People will contact me. I want to, do this or do that or present at my invention, and you have to look and you have to make those calls. But to me, there's nothing better than when I have someone on the bill and everyone's looking and saying, "Oh, I don't know who this is," and then they go out and kill. Last year, was it last year? I think it was last year. Was David Gerard, or maybe was that? I think it was last year.
So you will purposely find a safe place in the convention lineup to book a relative unknown, and then you just throw the dice.
Yes, and I found out, and a lot of times if the performer rises to the occasion, which hopefully they do, it can be wow, and then the word spreads. This guy, and I saw his first, appearance or whatever like that. And
So you help him, he helps you, and it becomes a kind of a symbiotic sort of relationship in a sense.
It is, and the other thing, hopefully, what I wanted to do is establish that I am the good housekeeping seal, meaning
The Godfather, come on!
that if you see a name on the roster at my invention or a convention I'm producing, and you're not sure who it is, rest assured you're gonna see something that's gonna be worthwhile.
Okay, let's talk about the hassles of producing a sizable. I mean, this ain't the NHRA or something, but still, it's tough no matter what. In fact, I would think many times the smaller size makes it more difficult. So, what are the hassles you face?
Luckily now it was getting people to help. I mean, I live in Philadelphia. The convention happens in Las Vegas. I lived in Colorado the whole time the convention happened here. I had a partner that lived here. Now my partner is gone. So luckily I had a friend of mine that said, but again, we had a storage shed that was half full with stuff for the convention. Now it's down to a box that big. But so it's getting people to help. And I have been very, very fortunate to have a number of friends, sort of decide that this is something that they like to do and they like to help. So it's finding people, because you can't do it all yourself.
Most people don't know Mark Strivings does your sound.
Mark Strivings, well, it's funny, they're all performers, all good performers. Mark Strivings does the sound. Greg Tobo, who presented, did you see his...
I did, the mathematics stuff.
Yeah, the mathematical stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought a really interesting job. So Greg's a performer. Sean Pop, he had to take off early. He's a very busy corporate performer. So the guys, running the AV are not just, schleps that are helping. These are, quality performers. Scott Steelfry, the guy that helps us out, works with Jeff McBride and his crew. The only one that's a real amateur is Joey, our stage manager.
Joy Butler.
Yeah.
Who is one heck of an enthusiast.
Yes.
You ask anything of him, and it's cheerfully done.
Yes. So it's finding people that are able to help you. One of the hassles is telling people no. And fortunately or unfortunately, I have years of experience doing that. Okay. So, but it's still never something that you like to do. And now at my theater, it's happening more and more frequently, because there I get contacts now a couple times a week probably.
Really? Your theater, tell me about that. I hadn't heard much, and I'd like to hear more.
August 18th was, we haven't had a grand opening yet, but we did a show on August the 18th. It's a place called the Smoke and Mirrors Magic Theater. And it will present, it's a custom-built room. There's not another room like this in America. It's a 60-seat theater, 4 rows. It's built European style. When I was over lecturing in Germany, and I went from city to city, occasionally a guy said, do you want to see the local magic? There's a local magic theater? And some of these theaters were just gorgeous.
Yes.
And some of them were built in a style unknown to America. So there was one in Munich that was built, the first row was flat, the next row is elevated, and everything curves around, and the third and the fourth row. So the way ours works, by the time you're in the 4th row, your feet are about 7 feet off the ground. So there's never, if a guy puts a card down on the table, everyone in every seat can clearly see that card. So
it's what we think of in our minds as an operating theater at a big college.
Yes, if you ever saw those old movies, Doctor, and the doctors are all sitting around like that, that is sort of what it looks like. So I have a partner, Marty Martin's my partner in the venture, and we actually have 2 theaters. We have a second theater that we call the Little Theater, named after Bob Little. And that's another room that we have a different vibe. It has a raised stage. The audience is flat, higher ceiling, and we can do corporate events there and meals and different types of shows there. There's a shop, and then the 4th leg, I call it the 4 S's, was shows, shop, school, and then seance. So we have another back room that we are going to be converting into a seance, and that's going to open sometime next year.
Okay, so we've gone through the stuff that people see at the convention. How about the stuff they don't? How tough is it the first time to negotiate with a hotel to find one what you look for, and how you negotiate, because it's a tough business.
It is, and again, this is an area where now, honestly, my partner Robert, he did a lot of that. He lived in Vegas. He went out and looked at the different hotels. So in the beginning, now I'm taking over those duties because he's gone, and there's been some controversy about the hotel we're using. They've made some changes, physical changes to the hotel. There was Jack's Pub, where
Yes.
Bob Cassidy would hold court in Jack's Pub, and it was a landmark, and everyone would hang out in Jack's Pub. Well, Jack's Pub, we got here this year, is no more. There's now Keno going on there, or something like that. So the hotel has had some physical changes. So my invention, we started out at the San Remo.
Yes.
And that's where we were doing My Invention. And that's basically, I'm sorry, not My
It's
Invention.
Hooters now, isn't it?
It's Hooters, right. But Robert and I were doing LVMI, the Close-Up Convention, the Las Vegas Magic Invitational. And after a few years of doing LVMI, Robert and I, we would, after the convention ended, him and I would sit down and do the post-mortem, we called it. What do we do right? What do we do wrong? What can we do better for next year? And the one year he said, what's good? He says, maybe we should do a second convention. He says, because you think about it, convention's only 3 days out of 365. Maybe we should do one more. And I said, okay, let me think about it. And what happened was I started to look around at, at the conventions, and I realized I know about the PEA convention, but that's for a private organization, so it's not a public event.
Right.
And I looked around, I said, there's nothing for mentalism at all. And now I'm going back, this is the 14th. My invention was probably a year or two before then, so I'm going back 15 or 16 years, where mentalism was not as hot and popular as it is right now.
Yes.
It was known, it was around, but it hadn't even really started its ascendancy. I don't believe at that time.
Selling a mentalism lecture was like pulling teeth.
Yes.
I'm going to do tricks. I lie. And then do mentalism and teach them and model the philosophy. And they loved it. But before then it was, oh, we don't want that mentalism stuff. It's boring.
Or it's boring, or it's dark, or they think about it as bizarre magic or something like that. They didn't know. But finally, I sat down with Robert and I said, mentalism isn't really being served. Let's try that. It's not going to be, we're not going to, because Robert originally was trying to produce the big convention, and LVMI was again a close-up convention, 150 people. So it was sort of more in what I would expect to get. And the very first one we did was 14 years ago, and I think we had 65, 70 people came out to the San Remo. I've had a computer crash, so I don't have all my files from back in those early years, but I'm pretty sure Max Maven was on the first show, and possibly Doc Hilford. Not sure. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can dig on the internet or something and find out if...
I'm not sure whether I was here for the first one. I was here for one of the San Remo.
Yeah, you were for one of the very early ones.
And I have a wonderful photograph I'll treasure forever, because one of the little showrooms, mini showrooms, was there. And so as I was coming out, these 6 beautiful, almost naked ladies.
I remember that picture.
Yeah, and they're, I'm just standing in the middle, just feeling really good, and there are all the others, and they're delightful. The showgirls really are very nice.
Yes.
All right. How do you make sure you make money?
That is, I don't want to say it's in the lap of the gods, but what happens when you're doing now? Again, we've reached a point now where we've done enough that I know hopefully I'm going to get a certain amount of people. Your goal when you do a convention is not to lose money.
Agreed.
That is your first and primary goal. And when you're starting one, and talk about starting one, at one point I said to myself, this idea is too good. I said, someone's going to start one in Europe. Why do I only let someone else do it? No one has as much experience as producing a mentalism convention as I do. Because I know Doc had Weird Weekend and there were other things, but at this point, my invention had now eclipsed in length of time what anyone else has done. Yes. So I thought, I'm going to do it myself. So, so if you talk about starting something, the Mind Summit just started just a few years ago. And so that again had all its fresh things of trying to produce a convention now in another country. So that had its own challenges.
Wow. So when you work with a hotel, and I think everybody knows that the convention gets somehow a piece of the hotel registrations that you bring in, that has to help a little bit. And the dealer's room fees help a little bit.
Yes.
Everything is you got plates
Yes.
spinning.
Yes,
everywhere.
You do. And you're trying to balance it, and you're trying to put on the best event that you can. For your attendees. It's all about the guys to come and support, not only support the convention by attending, but to support the performers and the presenters and the dealers by buying their wares. So, really the convention is doing a very valuable service. It's bringing together these people that have this interest, that live in all these different corners of the world. I remember one year we had 21 countries were represented.
Wow.
At Mindvention. So the convention serves to bring these people from all over the world together for a brief amount of time to share an interest that they really, really love and enjoy. So it's really, just a wonderful thing, and friendships evolved.
Oh, yes.
Guys start working together. I know there's a couple of guys that they're in different countries, but they Skype together and they're collaborating together like this. So it's really, and that brings me a lot of joy.
I've noticed that your management technique seems to be, you find a guy who can get the job done. You say, here's your job. Go do this. I'm out of here. I mean, you aren't out, but you let them do it. You let them handle it. They're the pros. They're the ones who have been from corporate venue to corporate venue, whatever. Let them take care of it. They know what they're doing. Yes,
exactly, and that's the there was a book, biography of Earl Flynn, and one time Earl Flynn somehow got put in charge of running a sheep farm, and he knew nothing about it, and he got out there and got all the people that worked on the farm and had everyone line up, and he said, "Okay, carry on." He says, "They know what to do.
Yeah.
They know how to run a sheep farm," and he was now the boss. So yeah, I try to find the right people and let them do what they do best.
Excellent. I think that's good management philosophy, no matter where you go. Let's talk a little bit about your reflections on several different subjects. These are not exactly one-word answers required. You can expand a little, but we got a half hour left. So,
okay, keep it short.
Yeah, so give me your reflections on Q&A, question and answer routines.
To me, well done. It is the most powerful thing out there. And I've been fortunate to see, we saw Gill Eagles just the other night, Jerry McCambridge show, Luke Germain. Luke, in the last time I saw Luke in Germany, his act was just Q&A. It was absolutely riveting. Well done. There's nothing like it.
Just about as real as it gets.
Yes.
Okay. Pre-show work.
Pre-show work, to me, no stone should be left unturned. Anything you can do that you need to do to make your show better, it's fair game. I'm a big fan of pre-show work.
I've heard one say, look, it's still part of the show. Pre-show, but part of the show. Psychometry.
Psychometry, great effect. Who did we have someone do it in the show the other night?
Yes, we did. Eric Samuels.
Right, Eric Samuels did his version, classic effect. And again, it can it just plays so well, and it can be played in so many different styles.
Okay, blindfolds.
Blindfolds again, well done. Once again, we had a couple of years ago, we had Satori from Germany. And, a lot of people had never heard of Satori.
Yes.
And they were quite surprised to see his blindfold routine is unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Agreed.
Yeah, and again, well done, fabulous.
Okay. Is there any time you shouldn't use a blindfold?
No, it depends on, what you're doing, obviously, and, well done. Very valid and impressive and theatrical technique.
Okay. Bending or PK?
Again, I love it. I would never do it. My character would never do it, so I don't perform it myself. Like a lot of things, I've seen people that have taken it too far, though. Sometimes, and that's the thing about Geller, you know, a little bend, and
He's done.
You're done now with the tines and the this and the that, and I've seen it approaching modern art. It's going past, you know, metal bending. So that's my opinion. A little bit is good, sometimes too much.
Can we still do good, solid predictions?
Yeah, predictions, again, there are so many good predictions, but that's why you want to take it out of the hands of, you know, newspaper predictions. You've seen it happen where something bad happens that day.
And you get bad publicity.
Exactly, but that's why, like, you know, the golf trick was a prediction trick, but around a fun topic, nothing serious, nothing too heavy. So, yeah, predictions are great effects.
I prefer to call them word tests, but the common term is book tests.
Again, a book test, you know, well done can be, you know, a fabulous thing. I published one of my routines where it was a mental epic routine that used a book. You know, mental epic used to see, think of any color, any animal, here, pick a card, and because they're forcing an object.
Yeah.
And I used a book in that place. Book tests, well done, and there are so many great book tests right now.
And they're very portable. They pack small and play huge.
Yes.
Okay. Drawing duplications.
Again, classic effect. Now that's one that is in my wheelhouse. I had my own drawing duplication that I have done over 5,000 to 10,000 times when I had a gig as a close-up magician, working 3 hours a night, 6 to 7 days a week. It's a lot of performing. I did this drawing duplication thousands and thousands of times. Unbelievably strong.
What are your thoughts on exposure?
No, there's no need to expose, because in exposing you are pushing out the information. There's a difference if someone sees you perform and then they want to go on the internet or go to a library and they're trying to get the information. That's one thing, but for you to be pushing it out, just totally wrong.
All right. How do you get real audience feedback? As opposed to the people who rushed the stage and said, you know, you're the best thing I've ever seen. There will always be those. But how do you get real feedback?
One of the ways that I do it is, especially now with my own theater, is I will have friends that have come to see the show. And then the friends will say to me, the person sitting next to me was saying this, the person behind me. So I'll ask my friends what the other people, and they, oh yeah, the trick with the rope. They were, so I can get some audience feedback through asking friends that were at the show and directly observed. It is not easy to get true audience feedback. It isn't.
Understood. Have you ever hired a theatrical director?
No, I've had people look at the show. It's something I'm considering doing. I've taken the Bob Fitz workshop, and anybody, I would say, especially, you know, when you're doing stuff like I'm doing, where it's a total character. I walk different, I dress different, I talk different. I refer to Gino in the third person. It's never me. That's Gino's hat. Those are Gino's shoes. Gino has his own shoes. I don't wear those shoes. I only put those shoes on when I'm the Gino character. So yeah, having a director can make a big difference, because the average magician doesn't know stagecraft. If you don't, and you're trying to perform, get someone that can give you advice.
Okay. Is there a book not in the mental or magic field that you would recommend everyone would benefit from reading?
When you said the question, one book did pop into my mind, and it was Harpo Speaks, the biography of Harpo Marx. It's entertainment related. The man led an incredibly fascinating life. He also had the dichotomy. He was a very smart guy, but he played a mute character. Part of the Marx Brothers. That book just jumps to mind. It's a book I've read it several times.
That's rather reminiscent of a Las Vegas entertainer we have here.
Yes, exactly, Teller. So there's that parallel to Teller.
And he drops by the Mindvention every now and then as well.
He does, and that's one of the great things about having the convention. And when I moved back to Philadelphia, started to open up the theater. Word got out about my theater opening, and people said, "Oh, he's going to move Mindvention to Philadelphia." And I said, "Why would I do that?" I said, Johnny Thompson isn't going to swing by as he did this year. Teller isn't going to come by. Jonathan, Amazing Jonathan, Matt King, and Bob Kohler, and you're not going to have that happen because they live, or these people are in Las Vegas. So
and they can't get away for 3 or 4 days.
Exactly. Usually. So we're Mindvention staying right here in Las Vegas, baby.
You are very near the holy grail of everything. Now, this might be a question that. Good thing I can cut. Let me ask anyway. We can, and you can tell me if you don't like the answer. I will take it out. What is the hardest thing personally to change in ourselves, going from magic to mentalism?
The effect that you're going to have on the audience. When you're a magician and you're having an effect and you found their card or the bill has levitated or whatever it is, you're providing a certain level of feeling and wonder to that person. But when you are now working as a mentalist, depending upon how your show is presented, you are touching people on whole other levels, and sometimes more than you would expect. And sometimes you are shocked that people have taken what you don't even think is, again, that serious or that deep, and they themselves have read several different layers into it. So you're really, where with magic you're touching people here, with mentalism you're touching them here. It's a whole nother experience.
Beautiful analogy. A lot of electronics in magic these days. When I walked into the dealer room, I felt like setting up a little Duracell freestanding display. Is this, in the long run, a good thing, a bad thing, or eh?
To me, I think it's an I think method should be the performer's choice, whatever the performer feels is comfortable for his method. Totally any method that he feels is necessary to achieve the effect he wants to produce. He should be able to free to choose whatever method he likes. But did you? It was very funny. There was Gil Eagles had brought pencils for his act, and they happened to be Eagle brand pencils. I noticed, coincidence. And one of the boxes remained, and someone had written on the flap of the box, "For sale, Gil Eagles' entire act, $1,000." And it was a box of golf pencils. Because Gil's act uses slips of paper and pencils. That's primarily, most of his acts, and other acts will come in that are using, other techniques or electronics. And again, they can both provide, entertainment or just doing it in a different fashion. But method is totally up to the performer.
Okay. What do you think your greatest asset is, either as a performer or as a convention promoter?
Getting things done. A lot of people in general have a lot of things. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get this job, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but they don't get it done. And I like to think of myself as a guy that get things done. When you're booking lecture tour, now I told Lee Earl I'm booking his lecture tour, I got to get it done, and I got it done. So when you have a convention, there's a certain date, out in the distance. The TVs have to be ready. This has to be done. Badges. You have to be able to plan and get things done. And I think that's something, not all the time.
Understood.
But many times, I can get it done.
Procrastination is not your friend.
Correct.
Okay. Here's an off the wall question. When you're going on the road, what's the very first thing you pack?
First thing I pack, I would believe my pillow. From traveling as much as I have, and I had a stretch, I think it was 3 years ago, and 3 years ago I'm like 59 or something like that, where I was 75 days on the road, most of it in Europe, and then the last 10 in America or something like that. Having your own pillow can be the difference between sleeping or not sleeping. So to me, without a doubt. And I used to have 2 pillows, and my wife said, 2 pillows? And finally I cut it down to 1 eventually. I weaned off. But yeah, having my own pillow, that's the first thing in the bag.
That's the first time I've had that response, but I absolutely agree with you. If you can't have the most comfortable bed, a pillow makes a lot of difference.
The home field advantage.
Yes. How has mentalism changed, do you think, in the years since you came to it? What was it like when you came to it? What is it like now?
Again, the difference to me is the amount of people doing it. Way back then, there was Max Maven, there was you, there was Larry, there was a smaller universe of performers, and then there were the performers like a Gil Eagles that was out there in the trenches doing it that no one really knew.
Unknown, never seen.
Unknown. And just right now, there are, if you're into that, there are people out there now that you don't know that are doing it for a living and doing great jobs with it. Now, the popularity, because it's easy as you're a magician, like I said, when I worked the tables and I did my drawing duplication, that's the trick that they're talking about the most. Forget the fact that the 4 aces flew into the pockets. No, but how did he read my mind? How did he know that I was drawing that? And once you get that little taste and you see, because in my opinion, when you're introduced as a magician, right away there's an adversarial relationship between you and the audience. What's a magician's job is to trick you. I don't want to be tricked. I'm watching careful now. You're not going to trick me. When you're introduced as a mind reader, a mentalist, it's a different, could this be real? Maybe it is real. I would like it to be real. It would be so great if it's real. Show me. And they're a lot more open. So that's, a little bit of the reasons why, mentalism
Oh, you've described the appeal of mentalism.
Yes.
How has it changed from when you...
I don't think, it's just changed by more people doing it means more creative minds are thinking of it, more clever things are going to be invented. Because I always say to someone, I was with a layman friend and we watched The Magician. He says, oh, I can't figure that out. I said, you'll never figure it out because you can't realize how many intelligent people worldwide are working 24 hours a day with one goal, to fool your ass. That's it. That's what they want to do. These are smart people. That's all they're caring about, is inventing things that will fool you. So you're never going to figure it out.
Don't take it personally. Right. Yeah, it happens to all of us.
Right. We got the Webbers, the Germays, people like that.
Yes.
They're all they care about is coming up with things to fool you.
What's the best advice, performance, or production that you've ever been given? The questions get harder in the second round.
Yeah, I could see that. I have to say, be nice. Be nice. When in my younger days, before I moved out to Colorado, I wasn't as nice a guy as I am now. And I've learned to be nicer.
There was a movie built around that theme. I think it was called Roadhouse. And the same guy that did Dirty Dancing.
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze, and he was hired as a bouncer. And of course, the guys that were already, this was the bar where they had chicken wire between the audience and the band. Okay. And these big bruisers were the bouncers. And he just got them all together for a meeting. And he said, your job is not to kick people out. Your job is to be nice. And if you have to put your hand around their shoulders and walk them out, be nice. And nice works. And I agree with you, because there are people who knew me in my previous incarnation who would not have been favorable in their description, and they would have been right. So be nice. Wonderful, good advice. What's the one thing that every mentalist should know but also put into practice?
Again, I think it reflects back to what I said earlier, that you are really taking your audience, or potentially, to a spot where they're not used to going, and have care and about that. And obviously there's a line, and there's most of us are presenting this for entertainment purposes, and then there's the people that will cross that line, and so stay on the side of good is what I would say.
All right. This question, okay, how do you protect yourself from frisky participants?
I don't. I am one of those performers that I love when something goes off script, because I'm good at ad-libbing. So if you are, the guys that do that, Gregory Wilson's another one. He loves when something's going to happen, because then there's a chance to go. So to me, because the spectator's going to, do this or do that, I'm right there. I'm going for it. I've had them put their hands in my pocket, everything that could possibly happen. When you're a pro long enough, it's all going to happen. And to me, I'm not encouraging that situation. I don't want them to do it, but if it happens, I'm going with it.
Because it's still a laugh in the show.
Exactly. And then also, too, to the audience, they realize they're seeing a show that didn't happen last show. It's probably not going to happen. This is a unique experience that they were privy to. One time I got the chance to see Billy Crystal twice, back-to-back shows at Atlantic City. And the first night, oh my God, he was so clever, the ad-libs, this and that. The second night, some of those clever ad-libs were not clever ad-libs. They appear to be clever ad-libs, but they came back again. So, be in the moment, and, to me, whatever happens in the show, find a way to make it work.
Okay. Should the mentalist confine his premises only to displaying a limited set of capabilities, or can he get away with combining telepathy, precognition, clairvoyance, telekinesis in one show? Is that too? Should we be specialists?
Again, that's, I believe, a personal decision each performer will have to make. And the books will tell you, when you're, even if I'm performing, and not as Gino, just as Danny. Danny Archer is still a character when you're performing. So what are Danny Archer's ability? Can he do telekinesis, move things with his mind? Yes or no? You have to decide and define what your character is going to do, and then craft your show around it. That's one of the, to me, Superman, when I was a kid, he was too powerful. He could do it all. He could do everything. That's why Batman had much more limited abilities, but he was a more intriguing character because of the limitations.
And he was darker.
Yes.
Okay. What would make a mental routine memorable, and in what ways can we aid it in being more memorable long term?
Michael Lamar is the one that said it. If something is physically altered and can remain in a physically altered state, like metal bending,
yes,
that's a way to, because that's one of the things with magic and mentalism. It's gone. You perform it and it's gone. Like you sing a song, not recorded, a live song, and you heard the song, but the song is over. But if you could say, this is the key, I gave the guy the key and he rubbed the key, and look, the key is bent. That's it. Having something that is, remains in a state after.
Michael Aymar called it preserving the moment.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And that's a really good, really good way of looking at it. Are there mental effects that audiences care about most?
I don't know if I have an answer for that. I believe the audience wants to see something that's entertaining, mystifying, but it would be hard to say. I would have to say, though, again, maybe Q&A. When you see a good Q&A act, the audience will come out buzzing, oh my God, and this. And in fact, I saw Derren Brown on Broadway recently.
Yes. And
we fill out the slips of paper, and I think it's in the second half of the show, and he reaches in for the first slip of paper, and he says, a middle-aged man. I said to myself, it's me. I get the initial D.A. It's me. It was me.
Uh-huh,
All the people in the room. And I stood up, and he did it, and it was just, it really was an interest. As a lay, I would have to say, I was impressed as, the performer. Yeah, so...
So Q&A draws them in,
yeah.
and gives them a promise, and at least a pleasant kiss off.
Yeah, well, it's about people. Whether they're not answering maybe perhaps my question as opposed, but the person next to me, or I can see the guy right over there, and I can see the expression on his face as opposed to, was your number 27? So it's more meaningful because it deals with people, their thoughts, hopes, dreams, and questions.
Is there a common mistake most beginning mentalists make?
Probably, but I don't know what they are.
All right. A candid response is better than nothing at all, I guess. In your performing, what do you do to tighten a routine?
It was mentioned briefly, I think, during Johnny Thompson's talk the other day at my invention, is that one of the problems that most people have is, especially with mentalism and magic to a lesser degree, is where do you go to do it and to be bad? Where do you go to get the reps in, to get the thing? Because if you are a musician, you can play your piano as much as you want. You can practice.
Yes.
You can rehearse. And there's a difference between practice and rehearsal. Yes. But without an observer, there is no magic. There is no mentalism.
Yes.
Because if no one observes the effect, there's no performance.
There's no mind to read.
Exactly. So, there are places to do it. You can do it, in coffee shops. You can do it, Doc Hilford's one of those guys that, Doc.
I know Doc.
Doc is...
he is a presence.
Yes, Doc is a force, but there are ways that you can practice. And again, coffee shops, meeting people, things like that. Oh, can I try a little thing? And that's the way to do it. But we don't have. But if you want to, you can't do your 45-minute corporate show.
No.
Waiting in line at the post office.
No, but you can do 15 minutes at the Rotary.
Yeah, you can.
For example, and they've got to have something new every week, every lunch, 15 minutes. Same Lions, Kiwanis. And a lot of people forget the VA hospitals. I mean, these are men mostly who have served their country and kind of come out on the bottom for it. And they're sitting there, they're lonely. The brains are still there. The need for recognition, entertainment is still there. I always suggest go to your local VA hospital and let them know that you're there to provide a little pleasure for the
Another good
troops.
place, believe it or not, the fire department. The fire guys are sitting around a lot of time waiting for the bell to ring. There's not a lot going on. I would sometimes go in there and practice some sleight of hand on the fire guys. They got a big kick out of it.
It's a little tough just before the denouement and the bell goes off. What do you think would be a good solid opener for a mentalist?
Any opener to me should be quick, a little more visual, if possible. Yeah, something quick, something visual, something that will establish to the mind of the audience, because they say you walk out on stage, 15 to 30 seconds, the audience has already started to form an opinion about you.
Yes.
You don't want to start out, in my opinion, with a long, drawn-out effect. You want to do something quick, something punchy, something that will say, oh, this is going to be good.
Yes.
Let me buckle in.
Yeah, but I'd better pay attention. He might do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Who or whom today might we benefit from emulating?
In the world of mentalism, we're talking.
In the world of mentalism.
I have favorites. There's people that I think are the tops of the craft, and I'll mention one or two: Doc Hilford, Luc Germain, Weber. Even though I've never seen Weber do his layman show, I would love to one day. But I gotta believe that Michaels is good. Luc Germain, Doc. These are guys that really now. they're totally different. Doc's style is way different than Luc Germain's style. But
we don't know whether Doc is an entertainer pretending to be a con man or the reverse.
yes.
He plays it very well.
Yeah, and he rides that edge very well. And Luc is going down. You are, Luc can be just jaw-dropping. He's, and I don't know if you've seen Luc recently. Did you see him over in Germany when
I did not.
Okay, but he's, since he's been out of the United States, he works a lot. His performances are everything you could ask for.
Okay, we're down to the last couple of minutes on this recording session. So, first, is there anything that you'd like people to know about Danny Archer that I've not asked?
Probably not.
You're a private person.
No, there are, some of my quirks are known, and I have an unusual collection that a lot of people find interesting. But I'm not going to mention what it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And is what have not we addressed in this interview? What might folks just benefit from knowing philosophically? Your experience. Give us a takeaway.
To me, it would be, if you have a dream and you want to do something, like I'm a person that gets things done, just try to be someone that gets things done. Now, in addition to, the convention and performances, I said, I want to have a theater. I now have, it exists. You come to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, come by and check out the Smoke and Mirrors Magic Theater. It exists. Get it done. So make your goals achievable. My goal was not to be a billionaire.
Right.
Make your goal achievable, and instead of making the big goal that can be seen like Mount Everest, have a smaller goal and then another goal. So
Mileposts.
Mileposts. So have achievable goals along the way.
I think Zig Ziglar used to say, success is the realization, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Danny, if God forbid you should depart this planet before I do, and if no one else has a suggestion for your epitaph, I suggest it read Danny Archer, he got it done.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you so much for sitting for this interview, Danny.
Thank you, Lee.